All right. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning, depending where you're joining us from across the globe. We have a huge group joining us here tonight, so I'm going to wait a few moments just for you all to come into the Zoom webinar space. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're so excited to be able to share more about housing, living learning communities, meal plan, ID card services. So we will just wait a few moments just for everybody to come into the space. I hope you had a great day wherever you are. I know we had a little bit of rain here in Syracuse, but I will take the rain. But glad to be able to connect with you all this evening. Hope you get a lot out of tonight's session. We're excited to talk more about what you can look forward to here at Syracuse. Like I said, we're looking to see those numbers. They are ticking on up. We're expecting a full house beyond capacity even tonight within Zoom. So excited to be able to talk to you all this evening. So we'll wait just a few more moments for everybody to come into the space. Now's your chance to grab water, a snack, a blanket. We're going to spend the next 35 minutes together and then some time answering your questions as well. Thank you so much for registering for this evening. We're excited to be able to share more. But I'm going to get started as we are seeing our final students, families join us. Welcome, congratulations. We are so excited to be able to welcome you into the Orange family. My name is Mike McGrath. I'm an associate director in the Office of Admissions. Tonight, we are going to be talking about housing, meal plan, ID card services, living learning communities, everything you can look forward to living at Syracuse University. We will be hearing from two of my fantastic colleagues at the university, Tim Gray, Assistant Director of Assignments in the Office of Housing, Meal Plan, ID Card Services, and Dan Cutler, Director of Living Learning Communities. As you have questions throughout tonight, feel free to submit those using the Q&A feature within Zoom. We will do our best to answer as many of the questions as we can tonight. But as I noted, we are expecting about 500 people tonight, so we might not be able to get to every question. We will have our contact information on the screen if you do have questions after this evening. But I'm going to kick things over to Tim, who's going to start talking about what housing looks like here at Syracuse University.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. All right. Hello, everybody. So my name is Tim Gray, and I'm the Assistant Director of Assignments over in the Housing, Meal Plan, and ID Card Services office. And basically, my main role in the office is to oversee the housing piece. So we'll talk a little bit about how to secure your housing for when you arrive to campus in the fall. We'll also talk a little bit about the different meal plan options that we have on campus, as well as the variety of ID card services that our office provides as well too. So without further ado, we'll kind of jump into it and talk a little bit about what our office does. So overall, our office main role is to serve as a resource for students and parents to manage the living in our residence halls and apartments, understanding how our meal plans work, and how to use our SUID in various locations. Our office oversees the SUIDs for all students, faculty, and staff that live on campus. So we have touch points with students and faculty and staff all throughout their time here at Syracuse University. So we're one of the offices that we get a lot of inquiries and questions. So we often act as resources for students and parents as well too, in helping to navigate the different aspects that our office performs. One of the common confusion points is that our office is separate from kind of what's happening of actually the activities in the residence halls. That's more the student living team who oversees the resident advisors in the building and are kind of planning the day-to-day events that are going on in the buildings. We partner closely with them, but we're two separate offices. Our office is more focused on the assignments piece and making sure your meal plan is working and the ID cards are working, whereas student living is more kind of what's going on in the halls and the different interactions that you would have on a day-to-day basis in your residence hall. So that's one of the points that we like to share as well too. Like I said, collaborative relationship that we work with each other, but they are two separate offices in kind of what we do. So transitioning to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the fast facts of housing. We are a big campus and we have a lot of students that live with us on campus. We have actually over 8,000 students that live with us on campus in our 21 different residence halls and our 1,100 different apartments on campus. We do require our students to live with us for their first 2 years of enrollment. Now, there are a few exceptions to that. If you're a new transfer student, you are not required to live with us on campus. We certainly have housing options available for our transfer students, but it's not a requirement regardless of what your class standing is. And if you're someone who lives in the immediate Syracuse area, you're also someone that is not required to live with us on campus. So you may be asking in your first year, what are some of the buildings that you would be living in? So on the screen, you can kind of see the variety of different buildings that are available to our first year students. We typically like to keep our first year students together because a lot of times first year students are engaging and interacting in different different ways coming to campus. They're adjusting to campus life for the first time. They're still developing who their friends are and their social circles on campus. So we try to encourage students to kind of be in a first year area where they're meeting other students who are going through kind of similar things as well too. So these are some of the buildings that your first year students would be living in. And obviously, living on campus, it's a 2-year requirement, right? So on the next slide, we'll highlight some of the buildings that as a second year student you would be living in. So you'll see a variety of different residence halls. You'll also see some apartment style living as well too. Here at Syracuse University, our South Campus apartments are one of our primary areas of where students live. So about 50% of returning students end up living on South Campus in their second year. And it's a nice transition piece for our second year students because at Syracuse University, we also have a large off-campus community as well too. So it's kind of a good stepping stone for students to transition to what an off-campus housing situation might look like for their junior and senior year potentially. So these are some examples of what the second year and third year and fourth year areas would look like as a returning student on campus. So a couple of things to kind of keep on your mind for a checklist as you're preparing to come to campus in the fall. The first thing that you want to do is to complete that admissions acceptance form to join the Orange family. Once you do that, you'll be given instructions of how to activate your net ID and password. And that's your login information to access the variety of different services that are available on Syracuse's MySlice page. From there, we'll send you an email with instructions of how to complete your housing application. We typically send that about 3 to 5 business days after you matriculate into the university. So if you don't get it right away, that's okay. It takes a little bit of time for you to receive that email to your syr.edu email address. But once you do receive that email within your application, you can start to kind of complete information about your housing preferences. A couple slides from now, we'll show you kind of what the housing application looks like and everything. But we also have a portal within the application where you can start to search and find a potential roommate as well. It's not a requirement. You certainly don't have to match up with a roommate if you don't choose to. We can certainly randomly assign you with a roommate, but it is a tool for you if you're looking to connect with other students that are going to SU or potentially make a connection prior to coming to campus. That is available for you to start to find people and to interact with them prior to you coming to campus. And the last thing that you want to make sure is submit your health history and immunization forms through the health services portal. It's not going to prevent you from applying for housing or securing your space on campus or anything. But it may slow down your check-in to the residence hall if you don't submit it prior to your arrival to campus. So July 1st is typically the deadline that we look for people to submit their immunization forms. So just make sure that you're submitting it by that deadline so that you're not running into any hiccups during your actual movement to campus. So here's a screen grab of what you're going to see at when you first log in using the link that's going to be emailed to you. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is at the bottom left-hand side of your screen where it says Syracuse Student SSO login. That's your single sign-on login that you'll use your net ID and password to log in to access the housing application. And then once you click that button, if we could go to the next slide, you'll see what the application looks like. So this is kind of a screen grab of what the overall application looks like. On the left-hand side, you'll see the different tabs of the application. So it'll ask you as you're clicking save and continue different questions and different aspects of the application in order to fully understand what you're looking for in terms of your housing preferences. You'll also see on the left-hand side, kind of toward the bottom where it says roommate matching. that's where you can use that roommate matching tab to start to make connections to potentially find a roommate prior to you coming to campus. It's a really comprehensive profile piece where you can search for people based on how they respond to a certain questionnaire, their current interests, and everything like that. And it'll actually rank a percentage match of how compatible you are with potential roommates and start to suggest roommates as well. So it's a really cool feature, but that's available to you if you're looking for a roommate prior to coming to campus. So we'll cover the important deadlines again. Again, ongoing. Once you commit to SU, you'll receive an email from the housing office reminding you to complete your housing application. June 1st is the deadline that we ask for you to select a mutual roommate within your housing application. Again, if you don't select a roommate, that's totally fine. We'll use the questionnaire that you fill out to try to find a compatible roommate for you as well. But it is available to you if you're looking to make that selection as well. June 1st is that priority deadline to submit your housing application. Ultimately, if you submit it by June 1st, it's going to give you a chance to participate in one of the living learning communities that Dan Cutler is going to talk about a little bit later in this presentation. It'll also give you a chance to make that roommate request that we mentioned as well. And then there's some questions in there about specific room type preferences that if you're submitting it by June 1st, we try to honor those as best as we can as well too. So making sure that you're submitting it by June 1st is that priority deadline. It will be open beyond June 1st, but to ensure your full preferences are met, we ask for you to submit it by that June 1st deadline. July 1st is when we ask for that health history and immunization form on campus. And early July is typically when we send our housing assignment notifications. So we'll send out your housing assignment via your syr.edu email address. And the communication will be available for you to take a look at in your housing portal in MySlice once we do send out that notification. So here's a couple of different examples of what our rooms look like. So most commonly, our first year students live in one of two room types. So they either live in a split double, which you see on the screen currently. A split double, it gets you that roommate experience and also gets you a little bit of privacy with that dividing wall that's kind of separating the two beds. So you do have that privacy, but you still have the roommate experience. The other option that we have is an open double on the next slide, which is pretty much what a split double looks like, but without the dividing wall. So you're still going to get the roommate experience. You're still going to get the same furniture and the same amenities as a split double, just without that dividing wall in between. We do have a few other room options that are available in the application as well too. I don't have pictures of them, unfortunately, in the PowerPoint, but we do have some single room options as well as some 4-person suites. So if that's something that you're interested in, you'll have the opportunity to indicate that on your housing application as well too. But those are pretty limited in availability, but primarily our split doubles and open doubles are typically what our first year students experience in their first year. All right, so we'll shift gears a little bit to meal plans. So our first year students are required to be on our Orange Unlimited meal plan. And what that essentially is unlimited meal swipes in any of our 5 dining centers on campus. It also includes some meal plan dining dollars, which we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like as well too. We also, as you progress into your career at SU, you'll have some more opportunities for different meal plans, depending on where you live on campus as well. So we currently have a block meal plan, which is our block 130 and block 85 meal plan. And essentially what that is that you're getting a certain amount of meals throughout the course of the semester. So for the block 85, you're getting 85 meals for the semester. Each of those meal plans do come with 200 meal plan dining dollars as well too. We also have a couple of meal plan dining dollar plans, and these are typically more for our students that are living in our apartments that have their own kitchens, but also want to supplement and have the opportunity to purchase meals if they want to. So currently we have a deluxe meal plan dining dollar plan and the value dining dollar plan. Now, what these dining dollars are is that they're tied to a meal plan, but they allow you to purchase things at some of our grab and go locations. So on campus, we have places like Dunkin' and Core Life Eatery, some of these more grab and go options that act more as a declining balance. So each of these plans kind of give you that flexibility to go into the dining hall and kind of have more of an all-you-can-eat buffet style of dining center, but also have that declining balance and more of flexibility if you're in between classes and need to grab a cup of coffee prior to going to class as well too. So lots of different flexibility with each of our meal plans. And we partner close with our food services team. Our food services team actually has a registered dietitian that works directly with students who have different concerns and different dietary plans that they're following as well too. Maybe you have specific food allergies that you want to speak with someone about as well too. So I did want to share their contact information if you want to get in touch with someone to kind of talk through your individual dietary needs. But they're great at listening to basic student needs and concerns about what's going on in the dining center. So certainly if you want to connect with one of the staff members, feel free to reach them at the contact information that you see on the screen. All right, and last but not least, one of the essential services that we provide is issuing an SUID card. So like I said, each student, staff, and faculty member does receive an SUID card, and this is your ticket into any of the buildings on campus. So obviously it's gonna give you access to your building. Now, when you're living on campus, you're only gonna have access to your specific residence hall, but this will also be your card to get you into different academic buildings and other locations on campus. Meal plan usage, so that's going to have your meal plan directly on your card, so you can use that to swipe in and out of the dining centers. We also have CUES Cash, which is another form of declining balance that the university offers. And it gives you the same flexibility as dining dollars, but it also gives you an additional flexibility at places like the bookstore. You can use it at different concession stations at the Dome for during game events, but other locations on campus and some off-campus locations as well too that can be used for CUES Cash as well. It'll also get you into the Barnes Center if you're looking to use that facility for either fitness or for wellness. It'll get you into any of our libraries on campus. One of the big deadlines that we ask is that in order to make sure that your SUID card is prepared for your arrival, we do ask for your photo to be submitted to us by July 15th. You can either do that through the Get app or the Get website. I have a link later in the presentation that directs us to our website, which has information of how to download the Get app or to go to the Get website. But you can input a photo and we'll have that prepared for you when you check in at your residence hall in the fall. So as long as you're submitting it by July 15th, we should have that prepared for you at the beginning of the semester. So before I turn it over to Dan, I wanted to put our contact information up on the screen. If you have any questions about applying for housing or any of our meal plans or how to submit an ID card photo, anything that comes up as you prepare for your Syracuse journey, feel free to reach out to us either by phone or by email. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We have a ton more information on our website as well too. So if you if you scan the QR code, it'll bring you directly to our website. But if you have any questions as you're navigating that website, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So with that, I will now turn it over to Dan Cutler to talk about living learning communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dan Cutler. I'm the director in the Office of Living Learning Communities. And I have to say, I'm just really happy with myself right now that I remembered to unmute before I started talking. Because even after 3 or 4 years of doing this, I still forget that part. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our Living Learning Community program and our theme housing, which we also offer. Also, just a random tidbit for you all. This year is the Living Learning Communities program's 25th anniversary. So we've been running for 25 years. And in that 25 years, we've had 28,334, to be exact, students who have been in and gone through our Living Learning Community program. So it's fairly popular with our incoming students. So one of the first questions I get when we talk about living learning communities and theme housing is what's the difference? What really is a living learning community? So in some ways they're similar. It's students living together around some kind of common interest area. In theme housing, it's more interest-based. In living learning communities, it's more around an academic area. So whether that's a major or some kind of academic program or academic affiliation. And then there's events that are happening with both kinds of communities. Where living learning communities really stand apart or are different is that academic component, right? So it's about academic support, academic engagement, connecting you with faculty. There's a common academic experience that you're having with the students that are living with you in a living learning community. So it's both that social sense of community that's happening, and it's that academic engagement and support. And then within each living learning community, there is a living learning community RA that's hired that does extra events and programs specific for the LLC students and connects you with the faculty and staff who are working with that particular LLC. And then some of our LLCs also have academic peer mentors, which are upper class students who have been in the LLC in the past and are coming back for a second or third year to help mentor the first year students and provide some of those academic resources and help with that academic transition that can come with coming to college from a high school experience. So that's really the difference between the two, is that theme housing does not have any academic connection to it. It's more just about living together around a common theme, whereas living learning communities have that additional academic component. So I wanted to put together a couple slides to talk about the different kinds of LLCs that we have. So if we group them, we have some that are restricted by some kind of academic affiliation. So for example, you have to be part of a certain school or college here at SU to be in some of our LLCs. So there's that list there of engineering, Maxwell, architecture, et cetera. You have to be a member of that school or college to join those. And then we have those that are even finer in terms of their restriction of you actually have to be a certain major. And so like exercise science as an example, you have to be an incoming exercise science major to join that particular living learning community. So there's that group. And then the last group is very cleverly titled other affiliations. So for example, esports are restricted to both those who are incoming in the major of esports as well as the varsity athletes within esports, or honors. You need to be a part of the honors program. So those are the ones that are restricted, where you have to have a certain connection or affiliation to be able to join. On the next slide are the ones that are open to any student. No matter what major you are, no matter what you're looking to study or interested in, you can join any of these. But we've kind of categorized them around different areas. So we've got our interdisciplinary group. So like the first one on there, our entrepreneurship LLC. You can be any major and want to start your own business and be an entrepreneur. So that might be one you're interested in. Or international relations. Again, you might be interested in that as a major, or it might be part of what you're thinking about a career. So you could join that one as well. We also have a group around kind of creativity and artistic expression. So there's some options there. Our STEM group in Shaw Hall, we have a large STEM residential college there. And so that's science, technology, engineering, and math. We have kind of a wellness, health and wellness group. And then lastly, I want to spend a minute talking about our multicultural and identity exploration LLCs. And to clarify, so those are open to any student. So you do not, like, let's take Indigenous as an example. We have an Indigenous LLC, which is around the exploration and the celebration of the Native American identity, culture, community. You don't have to identify personally as being Native American to join that particular community. It's just about showing an interest in wanting to celebrate and learn more about that particular culture. So all of our multicultural and identity ones are open to any student. You don't have to hold that particular identity group to join those. So I just want to make sure that was clear. So now that you kind of understand what an LLC is and kind of what our different options are, if we move to the next slide, the question around why would I join? What's the benefit? What am I getting out of this? Why? And so our program here at SU focuses on two broad impact areas that we're really trying to have a positive effect on the student's experience. So the first is that sense of belonging and that sense of community. So SU can kind of be a big place for some students. And so it's about creating that home base of the floor community that you're living on in your LLC, so that as you go out and explore the rest of the university and make connections, that you always have that home base or that home community to come back to. So you're living with students that you have some academic affiliation common with, whether it's a major again or something else. They're helping you, whether it's you're struggling with an academic area problem, you're doing homework, or like helping you get up and go to class. Not that any of you would ever sleep through class. I know you're very committed, but sometimes that happens to other students. And so being in an LLC can help in those small little ways as well. So that's that sense of belonging and community that happens. And then the other piece that we really focus on is, as I talked about, that academic engagement and support piece. And so we're trying to connect you with the faculty that are in your particular academic area. With our peer mentor programs, we're providing you academic support. We're talking to you about, these are the different academic programs, or these are the different academic software that we use, like Blackboard. That's where the faculty members have a lot of their class information. Here's how you register for classes for your following semester. So we're trying to provide that extra academic support and guidance to make your first year really successful. And then what research has shown is that students who go through our LLC program here at SU are more satisfied with their experience at Syracuse University, and they're more likely to be retained and graduate, which, as you all know, is kind of important. So we're definitely trying to have an impact on those areas as well. So I couldn't have a student be here with me tonight. And so I wanted to give you a sense for what they say around their LLC experience, because I know I've been with the program for 21 years. I'm the director. It's my job, but you may want to actually hear from someone who's been in one here. And so this is a quote from a student who has been in one, and really she's speaking to that sense of belonging and that connection that she found within her LLC. I'm not going to read it for you, but the next one here is really more focused on that academic piece and the students talking about that. I wanted to give a quick shout out for any of you who are potential design majors or incoming design majors. That is Zeke with the little mouse going around him. Thank you for that, Mike. Zeke is one of our faculty members in the design program in the design school, and he's one of our LLC faculty members. He's amazing and does great work with the students. So just a shout out to Zeke there. And then the last quote I have is again around community and the students talking about how there's that connection between the class experience and having classes with students as well as living with them, and how that really forms that sense of community that's been their home base for them. So that's really some of what the students might say. If you want to hear more about what students would say, on this slide, we have a section on our website called Living in an LLC. So if you go to our website and you navigate to that page, on that page, we have photos from students, photos that we've taken of what the experiences look like and what students are doing in an LLC. We have video testimonials of students talking about their experience. So they've recorded themselves and answered some questions about their experience. So we wanted to share that. And then we also have quotes from students. So really trying to give you a sense of what students would say about their experience in an LLC. So now that you kind of understand what they are, what the benefits are, the other question I get a lot is, okay, but what am I actually doing? Like, give me an example of what I'm doing in this LLC. So kind of think about it in the same areas as our impact area. So community building. So there's lots of different events, programs, out-of-class experiences that we work and provide for the students that are about building that sense of belonging in community. So it's going together to a dinner as a floor. That might be weekly, that might be every other week. For some of our, in the September months, a lot of our LCs do what we call a fall bonding experience, where they might go to the ropes course and do a high ropes challenge experience where they're connecting with each other. They might go whitewater rafting. They might go and do an escape room at our local mall. I want to let you know that nothing will change your life more than seeing your faculty member in a wetsuit. So that whitewater rafting experience, it's funny, but it's also serious in the fact that it really does change the dynamic. Students tend to feel more comfortable talking to their faculty member and approaching them. Hey, I need help with this. I'm struggling with this, because you've had experiences with them outside of the classroom and you can see them as real people. So it's a lot easier to walk up to your faculty member and ask for help when you're like, I've seen you in a wetsuit. I know what's going on here. So definitely that community building experience with those faculty members that are connected to our program are really important. And then the other area I think that we work on is around, again, that academic engagement. So some of our faculty members who come into the residence halls, they might have their office hours there. They might be hanging out doing review sessions, offering to answer questions. We bring in some tutoring, depending on the different LLCs, to offer calculus tutoring, for example, in Shaw Hall, things like that. And then our peer mentors are working on helping students connect with each other around study groups, building some of those skills that they need, making sure they understand kind of the culture here at SU and how you can navigate that from an academic perspective. And then the last piece is we're also really about connecting what's happening in the classroom to your outside experience. And so providing field trips and experiences that are more hands-on in nature. And so getting to see what's happening in the classroom, getting to see what your future career, your major might lead to in the real world setting. So as an example, we're piloting a program this year called Industry Fellows. And one of our LLCs that we're piloting it with is Sport Analytics LLC. And so the industry that we partnered with is the Buffalo Bills. And so in the fall, those students had a meet and greet with some of our alumni from SU who now work in sport analytics at the Buffalo Bills, had a meet and greet with those alumni. And then coming up actually in a week, they're traveling to Buffalo, which is about 3 hours away. And they're doing a behind the scenes tour of the Buffalo Bills Stadium, talking with those alumni, getting to see what their work is like in the sport analytics field And so it's really about providing that extra experience, really engaging in what they're learning about in the classroom. So that's the other piece of our program that we really try to have for our students. So now that I've sold you on LLCs and you're like, listen, get out of my way, I need to sign up for them. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you do that. And it's actually really easy. Our application is embedded right in the housing application that Tim talked about. So once you get the email from Tim's office and you go in and you apply, there's a section that talks about the LLC, and you can rank up to your top 3 choices. If you only have one choice, you can just rank that one and not have a second and third. But if you really want to let me know that you want that one choice, you can rank it as your first, your second, and your third. And I will definitely get the hint that you really want that one particular LLC. There are no essay questions to apply for an LLC. You've done enough in terms of answering questions and writing about your experience. It's just about ranking the choices for us. The deadline is June 1st, which is the similar deadline for housing. And again, our email is really easy to remember. So Living Learning Communities is shortened to LLC. So it's llc@syr.edu. If you have any questions or things come up as you're filling out that application, feel free to email us. We're always ready to help. And then touching for a minute on roommate piece, because I know that's always a question that we get around, okay, I want to be in this LLC, but I'm also looking for a roommate. How do I manage that and find someone who's interested in the same LLCs as I am? So kind of have 2 options there, like Tim talked about. You can let SU match you and find you a roommate and just kind of go random. And what that means is when we get the total population of everyone who's going to be in each LC, we'll then pair people up and match them together. And so that you would get a roommate who's also in the LLC with you. Or if you want to find one on your own, you can do that as well. And that would be working through the housing application, filling out the questionnaire. As you're looking for matches and finding students that you feel like you connect with, you can go in and look at their profile and you can see what LLCs they also ranked. It's really important that you and your potential roommate or the roommate you've matched with pick the same rankings of LLCs, because I haven't yet figured out how to crack physics of getting people to be roommates and live in separate buildings and separate LLCs. It doesn't work. So it's really important that you match up on the same LLCs so that we can put you together and in the LLC that you're interested in. So that's kind of applying, picking your roommate. And so here's a screenshot of the application. Tim kind of shared some of these already. This particular screenshot is specific to the LLC section. So you can see the little orange check mark right there. So they're in that Living Learning Community section. And you can see there's the add button. So that's where you'd click the add button, and then you would add your first LLC ranking as number 1. Again, if it's your only one, then you're done. Or if you want to add a second one, you'd click add again, and it would add a number 2, and then you would add your next ranking. So you can add up to 3 there. And then you submit it, and that's the LLC part. So the other thing is I wanted to just talk about a few frequently asked questions that we get. So one is LLCs are completely free. They do not cost the students or you any money. They're free to apply, they're free to join, and they're free to participate. So for example, that trip that we're taking to Buffalo for the day with the students, our office pays for everything. The students don't have to pay for any of that. We believe strongly that this is an extra added benefit to enhance your first year experience, and it shouldn't cost you extra to be a part of these. So they're free to join and participate. It's only a 1-year commitment. So other universities that you may have looked at, their LLC programs might be you join and you're in it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Here at Syracuse, it's only a 1 year at a time. So you might join one for your first year and feel great about it and decide you're good and you don't want to do one for your second year or beyond, and you can go and live and do other things. So each year you get to decide if you want to join one or not join one. And with that, roughly about 1,000 of the incoming first year students, so 25% of our incoming students pick an LLC to join. The other kind of area we get questions a lot about is feeling like, well, if I join an LLC, am I going to be isolated? Am I going to be in this little house on the edge of campus and, separate from everyone else? No. So our LLCs are in the same buildings that all the other first year students are in. So that list that Tim showed you earlier of all the different first year residence halls, the LLCs are in all those same ones. And so what it is, let's pick, Lawrence Hall. There's, 21 floors there. there might be one floor that has the Maxwell Living Learning Community on it, but the rest of the building has random students mixed within the floor, on the floor or within the whole building. So not only do you have that home base of your LLC, but you're also in a building with 400 other first-year students that maybe aren't connected to your LLC that you get to meet and connect with. So in our view, you get the best of both worlds of that tight-knit community on your floor, and you get to connect with everyone else in your building. So as long as you're planning on leaving your room, you will definitely meet other students and not have that sense of isolation that you might be worried about with an LLC. And then during Welcome Week, after you move in, and kind of some of our orientation events and Welcome Week, we'll have some LLC specific events that you'll hear more about once you apply and get into a particular LLC. So lastly, there is our there's our QR code to get to our website, which lists all 30 different options. I highly encourage you to check out the options. There's a description for each one. It talks about, the bullets talk about what you might be doing and what you should expect in your LLC. It talks about kind of the locations for each LLC, what floor they're on. And it also talks about what are those academic restrictions if they have them, what class they might be taking, things like that. So definitely read the descriptions to get a sense if that's one you're interested in. And so now I think we're opening up to questions.
Thanks, Dan and Tim. And thank you all for asking some incredible questions. A flurry has come through while Dan and Tim were presenting. Many of those we will try to get to tonight. If you have very specific questions, you've already seen some of Dan and Tim's email addresses. As a reminder, it's llc@syr.edu for Dan and the Office of Living Learning Communities, and Tim is housing@syr.edu. We'll put that in the chat as well for you all. So we were going to answer tonight as much as we can, and especially those broad questions we're going to answer. And so I want to start with you, Tim. First question I have is, how do students get into the room? Is it a key? Is it an ID? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So your SUID card is going to get you in and out of your actual residential building. So there's typically a swipe card reader that's outside of the building that you take your SUID card and tap it, and it'll open up the exterior entrance of the door. But your actual room is going to be a hard physical key. So you're going to be issued a key at your check-in location at whatever residence hall that you're living in, and that will get you in and out of your specific residence hall room. So so you'll have that. Encourage you certainly to get a lanyard to make sure you're not losing the key or anything, but that's what will get you in and out of your actual room, and then the SUID card will get you in and out of the building.
Thanks, Tim. Another question regarding residence halls. Can you talk about the bathroom styles? What is available to first-year students?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different bathroom options depending on what building that you're living in. So majority of our residence halls have what's called pod style bathrooms. So they're very much like the bathrooms that you would have at home, where you close the door and the shower, the sink, and the toilet are all behind one individual stall. Now these bathrooms are shared among the floor, but they do give you a little bit more privacy on the floor itself. We also have a few residence halls that are kind of more of your typical communal bathrooms. So they're shared among the floor, and they're, you know, your lineup of stalls and your lineup of showers throughout the community. So each of the bathrooms are spaced out throughout the floor, so there's never an issue of, you know, waiting in line to use the bathroom or anything like that. There's, regardless of what setup you have, there's plenty of bathroom options for you on the floor. So so you're not, you know, fighting with any floor mates to access the bathrooms at any time.
Thanks, Tim. Dan, a couple questions about living learning communities. First question I have for you, are LLCs only for first-year students?
No, they're not. Our program is predominantly first-year focused. However, we do have LLCs that are for sophomore students, and then we do have some that are a mixture of first years and sophomores together. And we also have some that are first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and we have some that are second, third. Every variation we kind of offer, but we do have more that are first year focused than sophomore. We are growing, though, with more sophomores.
All right, there's a lot of questions about the honors living learning community, about being in the honors program. Can you explain what that looks like to be in the honors program and in an LLC?
Sure. So the honors program, one, obviously you have to be admitted and get into the honors program. And then the honors program has a requirement that if you're going to be in the honors program as an incoming first year student, you are required to pick any of the 30 LLCs that we offer. They think it's such a valuable experience that they want that for all of their honors incoming students. And so we offer all 30 of them. One of the 30 is an honors living learning community. So a lot of what we hear from our honor students is they're trying to decide, you know, I'm an engineering major. Do I want to join the engineering LLC and live with other engineers, or do I want to join the honors LLC and live with other honor students? And so in that example, the honors LLC is actually our largest on campus. It's 220 or so first-year students who are all in the honors program living together in Sadler Hall. Our next largest is engineering, which has a capacity of 197. This year it was like 176 living in Shaw. So both are very popular, but so you've got to pick one, but you could pick any, or you could decide, I don't want to live in one that's around my major or the honors program, but I really am interested in, my example, Indigenous. And so I want to join that one and have more of a cultural exploration experience. So you just have to pick any of them. The other thing I'd mention about honors is because honors is so large, we have the capacity and space to allow honor students in the LLC to bring in and live with a non-honors roommate. And so that we can do that within the honors one. For the other LLCs, the non-LLC roommate is just a little tricky to manage because it's really about space and it's about how many applications I get. So if I have an LLC that has 30 spaces and I get 20 LLC students, I've got 10 extra spaces. I can allow them to bring in their non-LLC roommate. But if it fills at all 30, then all 30 of those spaces are going to go to LLC students. So every year, who can have a non-LLC roommate may vary based on the number of applications we get.
Thanks, Dan. We have a couple questions about roommates. Tim, how can I be sure that I've actually selected my roommate?
Yeah, good question. So like I said, the roommate matching piece is right in your application portal. So if you have seen the application portal, you might see kind of a feature that allows you to create a group. So chances are, if you've created a group and you see that you've created a group with showing up in your group, chances are you've matched with that person. A couple of things I'll add is that on our website, we have a full screenshot guide of how to navigate the roommate matching portal. And it's under our first year student section on the website. So I would say take a look at that and work through and see if you can use that as a resource. But certainly you can always email and call as well too. We can take a look on the back end to confirm that you're matched up as roommates. But if you're able to see them in your group together, chances are you've matched up with them and you'll be all set to live together in the fall.
And Tim, I know the idea of groups is something that is a little new this year. Can you explain what it means to be in a group?
Yeah, absolutely. So a group essentially is your roommate match, right? So ultimately a lot of students are going to have, groups of two because most of the first year students are going to be living in double rooms. So if you have a group of two, that's your roommate match group. And that's who you'll be living with. We do allow for up to 4 people to match up as in a group as well too, because we do have those 4-person suites that I mentioned as well too. But as long as you're confirming with each other, it's kind of like social media where you're sending a friend request and that other person has to accept it. But like I said, if you're having trouble navigating it, we do have screenshot guides that are on our website as well too. And if you're having trouble and you need to speak with someone, give us a call and we're happy to walk you through it to make sure that you're matching up with who you're looking for.
And do I have to pick a roommate?
You do not have to pick a roommate. So if you are filling out your application, you'll see prior to the roommate matching piece, there is a section called the questionnaire, and it asks you a lot of different things about kind of who you are, what are some different living style or living habits that you have. Are you someone that likes to go to bed early? Do you like to stay up late? So depending on how you fill out the questionnaire, if you don't end up selecting a roommate on your own, we'll use that questionnaire to try to find you a compatible roommate with someone who matched up similarly to you in the questionnaire. So if you're not, if you're not looking for a roommate or if you're not planning to find your own roommate, that's okay. Make sure you're filling out the questionnaire so that we can, try to find the most compatible roommate for you as well too when we assign you a space in mid-July.
Thank you. Question that has come up really for both of you. If students need housing accommodations, how do they go about that process? And especially if they do want to live in an LLC, how does that get brought in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our office partners closely with the Center for Disability Resources Resources. The Center for Disability Resources oversees what's called the housing accommodation request process. So they would be a great resource to connect with initially to kind of talk through some of the housing accommodation needs that you may have, or some of the concerns that you have to meet your needs as you're coming into campus. So I would certainly encourage you to reach out to them to learn more about that process, how to submit a request. Typically, once you submit a request, you're paired up with an access coordinator in their office to start talking through what your request is and how you feel that housing can meet your accommodation needs. But you certainly are welcome to make that contact with them to start that process at any point prior to you coming to campus.
Thanks, Tim. Dan, a couple questions about LLCs in timing. Do living learning communities have an earlier move-in date than the rest of students living in non-LLCs?
So I believe that this year, the move-in period is like a Monday through a Wednesday. And so we will be inviting LLC students to move in, I believe, on that Monday, although we recognize they could move in on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and that's okay as well. And so once you get into and are accepted into an LLC and you get notified, which I don't know if I mentioned this, the notifications go out the same time that the housing notifications go out. So at the beginning of July, Tim sends out his notifications, I wait 5 minutes, and then I send out my LLC notification. So you'll get those at the same time. But once you know that, then we communicate with you about what are the move-in options for you all as an LLC student. So it's in the same window as everyone else.
And then on that same note, if I don't see an LLC group that I really enjoy, or maybe it doesn't make sense for me, does that mean I'm out of opportunities to be able to do activities with my floor, like those trips that you mentioned?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So the way I think about it is, so student living, there's three of us. There's housing, which Tim represents, there's living learning communities, which I represent, and there's also the student living office. And so they kind of coordinate the experience for all students in the residence hall, whether in an LLC or not in an LLC. So there are RAs who are still doing events and initiatives and programs for all students. What may be happening and kind of the difference with the LLC is the LLC might be a section of students on a floor. The RA is working for everyone on the floor, but then it's also doing just separate things for that small group of LLC students. But there are still events and initiatives. They're still maybe going to dinner or doing things together. The LLC just does some extra on top of that.
And on that same note with LLCs, another question, Dan, that's come up, and I just lost it. Oh my gosh. For the roommate matching process, how do I find out if there's somebody who wants to live in the same LLC that I want to live in?
Yeah, so this new roommate matching process is new for us. It's new for housing as well. And so our understanding is, again, as you are looking at those students that you might be interested in, you can then see what their particular LLC rankings are. And so that's how you would do that. I think, and Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things for everyone to know is, as students are filling out the housing application and filling out their questionnaire and kind of creating their roommate profile, more and more students will get in there. So I think if you go in there initially and you're looking and you're like, I don't see anyone, it might be that you're looking early and there's still students who are getting fed in and joining. So you might want to go back and look a little bit later. I think the good thing is that you can rank your LLC choices, you can fill out your housing application, you can do your questionnaire, you can go back in and you could change your rankings, you can adjust. So you can continually go back into your housing application and kind of use that to navigate and look for a roommate. So I think Tim would agree, like you can go back in and see who else is loaded in the last week to see if there's someone you're connected with as well.
And Tim, coming back to you, there's a couple questions about if I've already know somebody I want to live with, say I want to live with you, Tim, how do I make sure that I can make sure I'm living with you and not get matched up with somebody else randomly?
Yeah, so that goes back to the roommate matching piece that we have. So as long as you're going in there and matching up with your roommate prior to June 1st, then we'll be able to work with you and make sure that you're living together. So as soon as you make that request in our system recognizes that the two of you want to live together, and we'll match you as roommates. The one piece of advice that I will recommend is that if you are matching up with a roommate, try to communicate what your room type preferences are as well too, because if one of you is requesting a split double and the other person is requesting an open double, one of you is going to get their preference honored. So try to have that conversation and see if you can match up your preferences as best as possible to make sure that when we make that housing assignment, we're meeting whatever request you make to the best of our ability as well too. So try to have that conversation when you're submitting your application as well.
Tim, there's a lot of concern about timing of everything. Is there a benefit to submitting the housing application early?
There's no benefit other than peace of mind, maybe. But as long as you're submitting your application by June 1st, we're going to make sure that your roommate requests are met. And you'll have a chance to communicate your interest in any of the great LLCs that Dan talked about as well too. Any of your preferences on there, we'll make sure that we're trying to honor those based on the space that we have available, right? But it's June 1st is that date that you want to make sure that you're submitting it by. But regardless if you submit it today or May 31st, there's no priority based on when you submit it. Just making sure that you're submitting it prior to that June 1st deadline.
Thanks, Tim. And I just want to note there's some fantastic questions that have come through. We are no longer able to really mark any more live. If there's not a question we get to tonight, feel free to email, as we noted, housing@syr.edu, llc@syr.edu, or orange that you see on the screen. But I do want to wrap up with a few final questions. Dan, is that also true for housing, that for LLCs, that there isn't sort of a better chance to apply early to be able to get an LLC?
No, actually, we're slightly different in that way. So the sooner you apply, the better for an LLC because it's about space availability. So for the most part, they're first come, first serve as students apply. We do kind of manage some things like gender balance. And so it may be that we're trying to have a 50-50 split between the LLC. And so that may affect the first come, first serve piece. But for the most part, it is the sooner you apply, the better. And again, we have some that are very popular. So that's why it's important sometimes to pick a second choice so that we can give you your second option. I will say that around 93% of our students who apply their first choice. So we work really hard for that to happen for them.
Thanks for that, Dan. Tim, a couple rapid fire questions for you. Are 4-person suites more expensive than a regular double?
So this year, currently, they are more expensive than double rooms. What I will say is that if you go onto our website, we have a comprehensive list of different room types and what each rate was for this semester. So you can take a look and kind of break down the cost difference between an open double versus a split double versus a single, and so on and so forth as well. So on our website, we have a full breakdown of what those rates look like as well.
Do dining dollars roll over or expire per semester?
Yeah, that's a great question. So dining dollars are tied to your meal plan. So any dining dollars that you don't use in your fall semester, they don't carry over into the spring semester. What is nice is that if you do run out of dining dollars, we talked a little bit about this in the presentation, but QSCash is another option for students. So what students can do is they can add QSCash to their accounts. And it'll get them the same access that dining dollars would provide them, as well as additional places like the bookstore and other locations on campus. And the nice thing about QSCash is that does roll over to the spring semester. And any unused funds of QSCash on your account at the end of commencement weekend gets refunded back to your account as well too. So you do have a little bit more flexibility with QSCash, but because meal plan dining dollars are tied to your actual meal plan, they don't carry over from semester to semester.
Absolutely. A couple sort of population specific questions for Discovery students. When do they go through the housing application process?
Yes, that's a great question. So for Discovery students, we typically have an information session around like mid-October or so to talk about what that application process looks like. Ultimately, it's an application that becomes available in mid-October or toward the end of October. And we work with you on placing you prior to you arriving to campus in January. So more information to come, but you'll have an information session to talk about the application process around mid-October or so.
Do our student athletes live together?
They do for the most part, and it kind of depends on what team that the students are part of. So some students live on our main campus, and some students live out on our South Campus in South Campus apartments. Your coaches and your team representatives typically communicate with you pretty closely about about where they anticipate you're going to be living. We still want you to complete the application to secure your housing, but there's a little bit more conversation with your coaches to make sure that they're working with you to solidify your housing assignment as well too. So more information to come on that as well too if you're a student athlete with us.
For upperclassmen students, does Greek housing count as campus housing?
That's a great question. So we typically offer a process with partnership with the Fraternity and Sorority Affairs office that does offer exemptions from the 2-year residency requirement to live in their chapter houses. Like I said, we usually do info sessions with the chapters around like the beginning of the spring semester to outline what that process is. But if you have any questions about that process, you certainly can reach out to either the Fraternity and Sorority Affairs office or reach out to our office and we can talk through what that process is. But there's a lot of information that comes from your chapter presidents and our variety of different offices about that process when it comes around to that time in January.
And then is there anything special that international students have to be mindful of in the housing process?
Not typically, no. So the application process for international students is the same process for our domestic students as well too. The one thing I will say is that if you're having any trouble with accessing the application, sometimes we have international students that have a difficult time accessing the application in our portal. Feel free to reach out to our office and we can help troubleshoot on the back end to figure out what the issue is. But we'll make sure that we're working with you closely to ensure that you're getting housing for the upcoming academic year as well too. But it might take a little bit of outreach just to make sure that you're getting full access, but let us know and we'll be happy to work with you as close as we can to ensure that you're getting housing for the fall.
And then I know there were a lot of questions that had come through about orientation, what it looks like to move in. We're actually doing a separate virtual session with Butch Hallmark and the Office of New Student Programs. I'm going to put in the chat the link. Those are happening next week on April 10th at 7 p.m. and then also April 24th. So you can find the information on our website. But I want to take this time to thank Tim. Thank you, Dan. So many fantastic questions. Thank you to all of you who joined this evening. Hopefully you learned quite a bit about housing, living, learning communities. If we were unable to answer your question, as I noted, please contact Tim at housing@syr.edu, which I just put in the chat, Dan at llc@syr.edu, or the Office of Admissions at orange@syr.edu. We'll do our best to make sure we can answer your question. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As you have questions in the future, we want to be here to help you get what you need to make the decision. We are so excited to welcome you to the Orange family. Thank you. Have a great evening and go Orange.